The city was still half asleep when Graham Whitford stumbled into the penthouse. The skyline behind him washed in pale blue. Dawn hadn't fully arrived, but the truth had. Lydia Brooks felt it the moment the door clicked shut. She didn't need to see the smudged lipstick on his collar or the faint shimmer of glitter on his cuffs. The scent alone, jasmine and a brand of perfume she'd never wear while 6 months pregnant, told her everything. She had been awake all night, not because of the insomnia that came with pregnancy, but because she'd received an email at 2:14 a.m., a hotel receipt. The Peninsula, New York, 1 king suite. 2 guests. Charged to the business card, Graham claimed she was too emotional to manage. Her hands had shaken at first. Hurt, betrayal, disbelief, all clawing their way up her throat. But underneath the heartbreak, something else began to grow. Clarity. A terrifying, unexpected calm. There were moments in a woman's life when she suddenly realized she'd been holding the wrong world together for far too long. This was hers. Graham didn't see her at first. He was too busy humming, still drunk on whatever lie he had told himself overnight. When he finally glanced up and saw Lydia standing in the doorway, one hand on her belly, the other holding her phone, the smugness slipped from his face. "Why are you awake?" he muttered, tugging off his jacket. Lydia didn't answer. She simply looked at him, really looked, and understood something she wished she'd seen sooner. He never expected consequences. Men like Graham believed women like her broke silently. But she wasn't breaking. She was waking up. And as he stepped closer, forcing a smile, Lydia felt her heart steady with a cold, anchored certainty. She wasn't the helpless one in this story. Not anymore. Because what Graham didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that Lydia had already taken the first step toward a revenge that would dismantle everything he'd built. And in less than 24 hours, he would learn just how dangerous a pregnant woman with nothing left to lose could be. Lydia Brooks hadn't always lived in a penthouse overlooking the Hudson. She came from a quiet suburb in Oregon, where people still waved at neighbors and bought peaches from weekend farmers markets. Her childhood was simple, humble, and full of the kind of warmth she later realized money could never replicate. But Lydia had ambition, quiet ambition, the kind that didn't shout but built steadily. She moved to New York at 22, with a scholarship, a worn-out suitcase, and a sketchbook full of designs. While other students dreamed in theory, Lydia dreamed in blueprints. Within a few years, she had earned a reputation in Manhattan's high-end design world. Meticulous, visionary, trusted. And then she met Graham. He wasn't a villain at first. He was charming, well-spoken, the kind of man who made a woman feel chosen. She fell in love with the version of him he presented to the world. The attentive partner, the supportive boyfriend who bragged about her talent at dinner parties. When he proposed, she thought she'd found safety, stability, a future. But people change. Or maybe they simply stop pretending. After marriage, Graham began tightening little strings around her life. Small things at first. You don't need to take every project. Stay home, rest, let me take care of us. You're pregnant now, Lydia. Stress isn't good for the baby. What she didn't realize at the time was that he didn't want to take care of her, he wanted to control her. And with pregnancy slowing her career, she gradually, painfully, became dependent on him. That was Graham's favorite illusion, power. But Lydia still had one thing he underestimated: her mind. She noticed inconsistencies, whispers from colleagues, changes in his schedule. She told herself she was overthinking, but a woman's intuition is rarely wrong. She didn't want to believe he was drifting, especially now, when their baby's heartbeat was the only sound that could make her cry and smile in the same breath. Yet the truth arrived anyway, in the form of a hotel receipt. That night, before Graham stumbled home, Lydia felt something shift inside her. Yes, she was pregnant. Yes, she was vulnerable. But vulnerability has sharp edges when pushed too far. She wasn't raised to crumble. She was raised to endure and then rise. And as the baby kicked gently beneath her hand, something inside Lydia whispered a truth she could no longer ignore. You deserve better. What she didn't know yet was that someone else believed the same thing. Someone who had been watching quietly, waiting for the moment she would finally need him. And by the time Graham discovered who that person was, it would already be too late. New York had a way of magnifying everything. Success, failure, love, betrayal. For Lydia Brooks, The city had become a mirror, reflecting a life that looked perfect from the outside but was quietly fracturing from within. The penthouse she shared with Graham Whitford sat on the 57th floor of a luxury high-rise in Manhattan's West Side. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Hudson River like a living painting, its surface glittering beneath the morning light. Sleek marble counters, imported lighting fixtures, and custom-built oak shelving showcased Lydia's design touch. Ironically, the home that bore her talent had become the place where she felt the most trapped. To outsiders, it was the symbol of their success. To Lydia, it was a glass cage. Graham's world revolved around Park Avenue boardrooms, polished conference tables, and power lunches at the River Cafe. He thrived there. People bowed to him, hung onto his words. It was where he felt untouchable, where Lydia's quiet presence had once elevated his image. But her world, her sanctuary, had always been her design studio. A sunlit space in Soho with wide windows, scattered sketches, fabric swatches, and a half-finished model of a penthouse interior that was supposed to be her next milestone project. But she hadn't stepped foot in that studio since Graham persuaded her to take a break during early pregnancy. He said it lovingly. He said it convincingly. He said it in a way that made her feel selfish for wanting to work. So slowly, the world she built shrank, inch by inch, until the night the hotel receipt arrived. That night, Lydia found herself standing in the penthouse's open living room, surrounded by the trace elements of the life she designed, but none of which felt like hers anymore. The city glittered below, but she no longer felt dazzled, she felt awake. She sat on the velvet couch, breathing through waves of emotion while her unborn baby shifted softly beneath her ribs. Her baby deserved more than a life built on lies. That thought became a flame inside her, burning away fear. The penthouse, once a symbol of love, now felt like the first battleground of her transformation. Because if Graham believed she would quietly fade into the background, he didn't understand her at all. And New York, cold, brutal, beautiful New York, had a habit of revealing people's true colors, which made it all the more fitting that Lydia was about to reveal his. And someone else, someone powerful, was already preparing to help her do it. Graham Whitford had perfected the art of double lives. To the world, he was the polished investor with tailored suits, sharp confidence, and a Manhattan swagger that made people lean in when he spoke. In business circles, he was admired, envied, even for his ability to dominate a negotiation with nothing more than a raised brow and a well-timed smile. He played the role so well that even Lydia once believed he was incapable of cruelty. But charm is the easiest mask to wear. The real Graham was a man who needed admiration the way other men needed oxygen. He measured his worth through attention, applause at investor dinners, praise from colleagues, lingering stares from younger women. And no one fed his ego quite like Sienna Vale. Sienna, with her manicured ambition and glossy PR smile, knew exactly how to build a man up just enough to make him forget who he was destroying on the way down. She whispered into Graham's ear during fundraisers, laughed too loudly at his jokes, and told him Lydia was holding him back, that he was meant for more, that he deserved a partner who matched his fire. Partners like Sienna never meant love. They meant leverage. Lydia had sacrificed for him late nights, emotional labor, choosing stability over her rising design career. But Graham eventually stopped seeing those sacrifices. In his mind, they became obligations, things a wife owed a husband chasing success. The shift was subtle, a forgotten anniversary, a dismissive tone, a habit of calling her overly sensitive when she questioned his late nights. His affection became transactional, and then conditional, and then something colder, condescension. By the time Lydia became pregnant, Graham had already rewritten the story in his head. He was the hero, she was the anchor. And Sienna, young, adoring, strategically irresistible, was the prize that proved he could still have any woman he wanted. But the truth Graham refused to acknowledge was simple. He was losing control. And nothing terrified him more than losing control. When he stumbled into the penthouse that morning, he expected the same cycle: Lydia's tears, his excuses, reconciliation on his terms, a pattern he'd grown comfortable exploiting. But the expression on Lydia's face wasn't heartbreak. It was certainty. It was the look of a woman who had stopped asking for the truth and started acting on it. For the first time in years, Graham felt something unfamiliar prickle beneath his skin unease. Because Lydia wasn't screaming. She wasn't crying. She wasn't pleading. She was quiet. And quiet women are the most dangerous. What Graham didn't know was that Lydia had already uncovered something far darker than an affair. Something that could ruin him beyond repair. The hours leading up to Graham's humiliating return home had been a quiet storm inside Lydia's chest. She'd felt the unease all day, a tug in her ribs, an ache behind her heart as if her unborn child sensed what she had not yet discovered. By the time evening arrived, Lydia had convinced herself she was overreacting. Hormones, stress, isolation, anything but the truth. But then her phone buzzed. One notification, one email, one receipt. It shattered the last illusion she had been clinging to. The transaction history was unmistakable. The Peninsula, New York, King Suite, 11:48 p.m. The timestamp hit her harder than the betrayal itself. She had been lying awake at that exact moment, feeling their baby kick for the first time that day, whispering to the tiny life inside her, "Your father loves you. He'll come home soon." He wasn't coming home. He was climbing into a hotel bed with another woman. Her breathing shook. Tears came, but not the frantic kind, heavy, weighted tears of a woman finally seeing a truth she had tiptoed around for months. She remembered how Graham used to look at her, how his eyes softened when she shared her design visions, how he'd once described her as the most grounded person he had ever met. But ambition, when fed by ego and flattery, becomes hunger. And Graham had been starving for attention that Lydia no longer had the energy to give, not while keeping his household together, not while sacrificing her career, not while growing a child inside her. She pressed a hand against her belly, whispering a promise not to Graham, not to herself, but to the baby. "I won't raise you in the shadow of a man who doesn't value us." The resolve came quietly, like a door clicking shut. She gathered the documents Graham had forced her to sign over the past year. Routine, he'd called them. Standard procedure. But Lydia wasn't naive. She had kept digital copies of everything. And now, as she sifted through them, she found the first crack in his facade. One signature, one clause, one oversight Graham never expected her to notice. An oversight that proved he had lied not just about the affair, but about their home, their finances, their future. She blinked, reading the line again, heat surging through her body. Her heart didn't break this time. It burned. Because Graham hadn't just betrayed her emotionally, he had tried to erase her. And that Lydia could never forgive. What she discovered in that document had the power to destroy him entirely, and she was no longer afraid to use it. Lydia didn't crumble right away. That was the strange part. You'd think the discovery of betrayal would break a woman instantly, especially one 6 months pregnant, exhausted, and already stretched thin. But breakdowns don't always happen at the moment of impact. Sometimes they wait quietly, patiently, until the world stops spinning long enough for the pain to land. And it landed the moment she was finally alone. Graham had gone to shower, humming off-key like a man who believed he still had the upper hand. Lydia remained standing in the living room, holding the printed receipt so tightly it wrinkled under her trembling fingers. The city lights blurred behind a film of tears she hadn't given herself permission to release. Her chest tightened, her breath shortened. Suddenly, the penthouse felt too large, the air too thin. She lowered herself onto the couch, clutching her belly as a wave of panic hit her sharp, cold, total. It wasn't just heartbreak now. It was fear. Fear for her child. Fear of raising a baby in a home built on deceit. Fear of becoming invisible, erased by a man who had already rewritten her value in his mind. The sobs came then raw, unfiltered, wrenching. The kind of cry that folds a woman in half, shaking years of swallowed disappointments loose. She buried her face in her hands, feeling the enormity of everything she had tolerated pressing down on her ribs. How many moments had she brushed off? How many red flags had she softened with excuses? Her baby shifted beneath her palm, and the movement grounded her. Even in despair, life insisted on reminding her, "You are not alone." But grief is a cycle, and after the tears came the shame. How could she have let it get this far? How had she given up so much of herself for a man who saw her as replaceable? The self-blame hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. She forced herself up, steadying her breath, walking toward the kitchen for water. But halfway there, her vision blurred again. She gripped the marble countertop, knuckles white, fighting another wave of dizziness. The emotional storm, the lack of sleep, the pregnancy, it was too much. Her phone vibrated. She ignored it. It vibrated again, then again. Finally, with trembling fingers, she unlocked it. A message appeared on the screen. A name she hadn't expected. A lifeline she didn't know she still had. Nathaniel Carter. Lydia, I heard something you need to know. Call me as soon as you're safe. Safe. The word hit her like a jolt. Because Lydia suddenly understood. Graham's betrayal was not the whole story. Something far worse was waiting beneath it. Lydia stared at Nathaniel's message, her heartbeat thudding in her ears. It had been months since she last spoke to him. Nathaniel Carter wasn't just any acquaintance. He was a former client, a respected CEO in Manhattan's construction world, and one of the few people who ever looked at Lydia and saw potential, not just Graham's wife. But why was he messaging her now? And why did the word safe feel like a warning? Her hands trembled as she typed back. I'm here. What happened? He responded almost instantly. Not on text. Call me. She hesitated. Graham was still in the shower, and she knew he'd erupt if he found her talking to another man, especially Nathaniel. Graham had always been oddly threatened by him, though he hid it behind fake humor. Jealousy disguised as jokes, Lydia realized now. She moved quietly into the nursery, the one room Graham rarely entered, and shut the door. The soft glow of the nightlight cast warm light across the unfinished space, illuminating the tiny crib she'd assembled alone. She pressed call. Nathaniel answered on the first ring. Lydia, are you all right? The concern in his voice cracked something inside her. No, not really. There was a pause, heavy, knowing. I figured. Lydia, I overheard something tonight. Something about Graham. Something you need to be prepared for. Her stomach tightened. The affair? That's only part of it, Nathaniel said quietly. There's a reason he's been pushing you to stop working, a reason he's been moving assets around. Lydia froze. The documents she'd reviewed hours earlier flashed through her mind. Signatures she'd signed under pressure, financial terms she didn't fully understand at the time. Graham insisting it was for the baby. What do you know? She whispered. Nathaniel exhaled sharply. He told someone at the gala that once the baby is born, he plans to separate and claim the penthouse and your studio as marital assets he controls. He said you'd be too overwhelmed as a new mother to fight back. The room tilted. Lydia gripped the edge of the crib to stay upright. He said that? Her voice cracked. Yes, Nathaniel replied, anger simmering beneath the surface. And worse, Sienna was laughing about a plan to discredit you as unstable once you give birth. She said it would make the legal process clean. Lydia covered her mouth, nausea rising. They weren't just betraying her. They were planning to erase her. Nathaniel's voice softened. You don't deserve this, and you don't have to face it alone. If you want help, I'm here. Her breath caught. Someone cared. Someone believed her. But before she could answer, she heard footsteps outside the nursery door, slow, deliberate, approaching. And Lydia realized she wasn't alone in the room anymore. The nursery door creaked open just as Lydia ended the call. Her pulse spiked. For a split second, she feared Graham had overheard everything Nathaniel's warning, the truth about the betrayal. The plans whispered behind her back. But when she turned, she found not Graham, but her own reflection staring back at her from the mirror attached to the door. And she didn't recognize the woman she saw. Pale cheeks, tired eyes, shoulders curved inward like someone who'd learned to make herself smaller over time. A woman living in the shadow of a man who used her kindness as a leash. For the first time, Lydia asked herself a question she'd avoided for years. When did I stop belonging to myself? The realization struck deep. Her whole life had been shaped by quiet endurance, accommodating others, smoothing conflict, bending gently like a willow tree in storms. But even willow trees break when bent too far. Nathaniel's words echoed in her chest. You don't deserve this. You don't have to face it alone. And beneath those words, a deeper truth emerged, something she had always known but never dared embrace. She was stronger than the life she'd been living. Slowly, Lydia straightened her shoulders. She wiped her face. She placed a steady hand on her belly and whispered, I will protect you. I will protect us. She opened the door and stepped back into the penthouse. The city shimmered beyond the glass walls, no longer mocking her but daring her to rise. The luxury around her, the marble floors, the hand-picked furniture, the curated artwork were all things Graham used to project success. But Lydia had designed half the space herself. She had built beauty where Graham had only demanded status. This wasn't his world. It was theirs, and she would reclaim it. She walked to her office cabinet, pulling out a locked metal box Graham never bothered to check. Inside were documents she'd saved instinctively, copies of financial transfers, old contracts, her original studio agreements, and the prenuptial clause Graham signed years ago without reading. The clause that gave her leverage. The clause that gave her power. Her hands no longer shook as she gathered the papers. For the first time, the storm inside her wasn't fear, it was direction. A woman transformed doesn't roar. She becomes silent, focused, unstoppable. And Lydia Brooks was transforming. Just then, the sound of the shower stopped, pipes groaned, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Graham was coming. Lydia closed the metal box, lifted her chin, and turned toward the living room. He thought he was coming home to a fragile wife, but he was about to meet the woman who would destroy everything he'd built. Graham stepped out of the hallway with a towel around his shoulders, hair still dripping, completely unaware that the dynamic in the penthouse had shifted. He flashed the smug, careless smile of a man convinced he still controlled the narrative. "There you are," he said lightly. "I was going to wake you. We need to talk about—" "No," Lydia cut in softly. "You need to talk." Her calmness disarmed him. Lydia wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. She looked anchored. And anchored women are dangerous. Graham narrowed his eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, Lydia walked past him and retrieved the printed hotel receipt from the counter. She laid it down with deliberate precision, like evidence in a courtroom. The silence that followed was suffocating. He stared at it, his signature, the timestamp, the room number. His face paled, then flushed red, then hardened. "Okay, look," he began, raising his palms. "Before you overreact." "There's no reaction left," Lydia said. "Just truth." Her voice didn't waver. His did. He stepped closer, lowering his tone. "This isn't good for you. Stress isn't good for the baby. We can fix this if you just calm down." The manipulation was so familiar it almost stung. Almost, but Lydia didn't flinch. "I know about the other documents, Graham," she added quietly. "The ones you had me sign while telling me they were routine." His expression flickered. Fear? Annoyance? Both. "You signed them willingly," he snapped. "No," she corrected. "I signed them trusting you." The words hit him like a slap. Then she placed a second document on the counter, a printed copy of the prenuptial clause he had forgotten existed. When he read it, his jaw slackened. "It says," Lydia continued, her tone unnervingly gentle, "that anything purchased with my personal design income belongs to me. That includes this penthouse, my studio, and the investments you've been bragging about as if they're yours." Graham's voice cracked. That can't, Lydia. You don't understand how business works." "I understand enough to know you planned to leave me after the baby was born," she said. His head snapped up, "and that you told Sienna I'd be too overwhelmed to fight for anything." The color drained from his face completely. How do you know that?" Lydia held his gaze. She didn't blink. "Because people you underestimate, they have allies you never see coming." The room went still. Graham took a step forward, breath unsteady. "Who told you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she simply whispered, "I'm not the one who should be scared right now." Because behind her, the elevator chimed. The doors slid open, and the person standing there would change everything Graham thought he controlled. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime that echoed through the penthouse like a warning bell. Graham instinctively straightened, expecting a delivery, a concierge, maybe even Sienna with one of her dramatic surprises. But it wasn't any of them. Nathaniel Carter stepped inside. Tall, composed, wearing a charcoal suit that contrasted sharply with Graham's damp, disheveled appearance, Nathaniel radiated the kind of calm authority that filled a room without raising a voice. His eyes, steady and controlled, scanned the scene. Lydia, standing firm, documents on the counter, Graham frozen mid-breath. Graham's face twisted. "What the hell are you doing in my home?" Nathaniel didn't flinch. "Your home?" He glanced toward Lydia. "According to the prenuptial clause, this penthouse belongs to her." Lydia felt something inside her uncoil validation, strength, a certainty she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Graham scoffed. "Lydia, you brought him here? Are you kidding? This is pathetic." Nathaniel stepped forward, calm but unyielding. "Watch your tone." Graham bristled. "You don't get to walk in here, and—" "I do," Nathaniel cut in quietly. "When you've endangered someone who trusted you, when you've lied to her, manipulated her, and planned to strip away everything she built." Lydia watched them, two men who couldn't be more different. One fueled by ego, one fueled by principle. Graham's mask slipped. "Oh, please, she's exaggerating. You don't know anything about our marriage." Nathaniel reached into his coat pocket and placed his phone on the counter. "I know enough." With one tap, audio filled the room, muffled voices, clinking glasses, then unmistakably Graham's. "Once the baby's here, she'll be too overwhelmed to fight. We'll move the assets before she even notices." Then Sienna's chiming laugh. "She's soft, Graham, emotional. Women like her break easily." Lydia closed her eyes. Hearing it hurt more than discovering the receipt. It was the deliberate cruelty, the confidence with which they plotted to dismantle her life. Graham lunged for the phone, but Nathaniel calmly slid it out of reach. "Don't bother. I have backups." Graham's voice cracked. "Why are you doing this?" "Lydia, he's manipulating you." "No," she interrupted, her voice steady. "You did that for years. Nathaniel is just telling the truth you never expected me to hear." For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Then Graham's expression hardened into something darker, calculating, cornered. "Fine," he spat. "If this is how you want to play, Lydia, you're going to regret this." Nathaniel stepped between them. Lydia didn't step back. Because she had just learned the most important truth of all. Graham wasn't afraid of losing her. He was afraid of what she could destroy next. Graham stood rigid, chest rising with sharp, uneven breaths. His face, a mask he'd polished for years, was cracking in real time. Lydia watched the shift with a strange, bittersweet clarity. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't intimidated by his voice, his anger, or the force he thought he could exert simply by existing. She finally saw him exactly as he was. "Small. Both of you need to get out," Graham snapped, but his voice wavered. "This is still my space." Lydia exhaled slowly. "It isn't. Not legally, not morally, and not anymore." Nathaniel didn't move, didn't blink. He simply turned his gaze toward the panoramic windows, the Manhattan skyline glowing behind them like 1,000 witnesses. "Graham," he said, his tone calm but edged with ice, "I didn't come here to fight. I came because Lydia deserves to know the truth. All of it." Graham's jaw clenched. "You don't know anything." Nathaniel lifted a document Lydia had never seen before, an internal memo stamped with the logo of Whitford Investments. "Your board knows," Nathaniel said quietly. "They know about the missing funds. They know about the falsified projections you hid in last quarter's report." Lydia's breath caught. "Missing funds?" Graham stiffened. "Nathaniel, don't..." But Nathaniel continued. "They were going to confront you next week. But when I overheard what you planned for Lydia, I decided she deserved the truth first." Lydia felt her heartbeat in her throat. Graham hadn't just betrayed her emotionally, he'd put their entire future at risk. Their baby's future. Graham stepped toward Nathaniel, fury twisting his features. "You think you can ruin me? You think you can walk into my home and—" "It's not your home," Nathaniel repeated calmly. "And I'm not ruining you. You did that yourself." Lydia's hands trembled, but this time, from adrenaline, not weakness. She was watching a man unravel under the weight of his own choices. "Lydia, listen," Graham said, turning to her with desperate eyes. "You're pregnant. You need stability. You need me." She almost laughed. "Almost. What I need," she said softly, "is a life where I'm not being used." Graham's face fell, fear creeping in now, real and raw. "But you can't just walk away," he whispered. "You can't." Lydia lifted her chin. "I already have." The room seemed to shift power, redistributing itself, settling onto her shoulders like armor. Graham opened his mouth to retaliate. But before he could, Lydia's phone buzzed sharply on the counter. She glanced at the screen, and her entire world tilted. Because the message wasn't from Nathaniel, Graham, or anyone she expected. It was from Sienna, and it contained a photo that changed everything. Lydia's thumb hesitated before unlocking her phone, but curiosity and dread won. The message from Sienna glowed on the screen, accompanied by a photo that sliced through her chest like ice. It was a picture of Graham, sitting intimately close to Sienna in a dim restaurant, laughing, relaxed, happy in a way he hadn't been with Lydia in a long time. But that wasn't the part that made Lydia's breath stop. In the photo, Graham was holding a small velvet ring box. A ring. Not the one Lydia wore. Not the one he'd proposed with 7 years ago. A new ring. A replacement. And Sienna's caption burned through her like acid. He promised me everything once the baby's out of the picture. Lydia felt the world tilt under her feet. Her vision went blurry, her pulse racing. She wasn't just betrayed, she wasn't just discarded. She was being replaced. And Sienna wanted her to know it. Graham lunged toward the phone. "Give me that now." But Nathaniel stepped between them with a swiftness that made Lydia's knees nearly buckle. "Don't touch her." Graham's eyes flashed with panic. "She's lying. That photo is taken out of context. She's trying to hurt you, Lydia." Lydia looked at him slowly, painfully. "So you didn't buy her a ring?" He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. That silence was an answer Lydia would never forget. Nathaniel gently took the phone from her hand and examined the image. "This isn't just cheating," he said, voice flat. "This is premeditated replacement." Graham's mask shattered completely. "Nathaniel, stay out of this. You have no right." "No, right?" Nathaniel said softly. "I have every right to protect someone you treated like collateral damage." Lydia's knees weakened, and she braced herself against the counter. Not from despair, she had cried all her tears already. But the realization was suffocating. Graham had never planned to stay. He wasn't having an affair. He was building a new life and preparing to cast her aside like she was disposable. Her baby kicked, then firm, insistent, as if reminding her she had something worth fighting for. Lydia lifted her chin. "You planned to leave me while I'm pregnant, and you were going to claim everything I built." "That's not how it," Graham stuttered. "You're being emotional." "Emotional?" Nathaniel snapped. "She's being realistic." The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. Then Lydia's phone buzzed again. Another message from Sienna. This one wasn't a photo. It was a video. A video Graham never wanted anyone, especially Lydia, to see. And when Lydia tapped it open, the sound that filled the penthouse made Graham go completely still. The moment Lydia tapped the video, the room fell silent. Nathaniel stood beside her, tense but steady. Graham hovered near the counter, eyes wide like a man watching a bomb he'd built himself begin to detonate. The video opened with dim lighting, the kind of glow from expensive restaurants where secrets breathe easily. Sienna's phone camera wasn't pointed at her, it was aimed at Graham. And he wasn't drunk. That was the first thing Lydia noticed. His tone wasn't sloppy or slurred, it was deliberate, confident, rehearsed. Graham leaned back in his chair, swirling a glass of bourbon. Sienna's voice floated from behind the camera. "So, the plan's still on? Once the baby comes?" Graham chuckled, the sound Lydia used to love now sickening. "Of course. I told you, Lydia won't fight me. She's too fragile, too emotional. Perfect timing, actually." Lydia's stomach twisted. "Perfect? How?" Sienna coaxed. Graham smirked. "Postpartum exhaustion. Courts eat that up. If she looks unstable enough, custody tilts my way. And once I have the kid, she'll sign whatever I tell her to." Lydia felt her knees buckle. Nathaniel put a steadying hand on her back. But the video wasn't done. Sienna giggled. "And the assets?" Graham leaned closer, lowering his voice. "She won't even realize I shifted ownership. I've been working on this for months. Once we're public, I'll claim she spiraled during pregnancy. Investors will side with me. They always do." He clinked his glass. To a clean transition. The video ended. The silence afterward was suffocating. Graham's face had drained of all color. "Lydia, listen, I was drunk." "No," Nathaniel cut him off. "You were calculating." Lydia couldn't speak. Her throat burned, her chest tightened, but her mind unexpectedly was clear. Pain sharpens into purpose when the truth becomes undeniable. Graham took a step toward her, hands raised in false gentleness. "You're overreacting. This video, it's twisted. Sienna's manipulating you because she's jealous." Lydia let out a hollow breath. "Jealous? She sent me the video, Graham." He froze. Nathaniel's eyes hardened. "She's not jealous. She's showing Lydia exactly who you are." Graham turned on Nathaniel. "You don't get to interfere in my marriage." Nathaniel stepped forward, voice low. It stopped being a marriage the moment you plotted against her. Graham's mask shattered. You think you can just walk in and save her? She's nothing without me. Lydia finally lifted her head. Her voice was quiet, steady, deadly. No, Graham. I was nothing because of you. Her baby kicked gently, as if agreeing. Before Graham could answer, the elevator chimed again. Lydia's heart stopped when she saw who stepped out, because this time, it wasn't an ally or a threat. It was someone carrying documents that would end everything. The elevator doors slid open again, soft, controlled, nothing dramatic, yet the tension in the penthouse tightened instantly. Lydia, Graham, and Nathaniel all turned toward the sound. A woman stepped out, impeccably dressed, cold professionalism in her eyes, a leather briefcase in hand. "Mrs. Brooks?" she asked calmly. Lydia blinked. "Yes, I'm Alexandra Pierce," the woman said. "Legal representative for Whitford Investments Board of Directors." Graham blanched. "The board? Why the hell are they?" Alexandra didn't even look at him. "They've requested immediate delivery of these documents." She opened her briefcase and withdrew a thick envelope, sealed with the company's embossed crest. "Mr. Whitford is to review and acknowledge receipt within the hour." Nathaniel exhaled. He already knew. Graham snatched the envelope, ripping it open with frantic movements. Papers slipped out, legal notices, financial ledgers, formal complaints scattering across the marble floor like confetti at a funeral. "What is this?" he demanded. "What are they accusing me of?" Alexandra clasped her hands. "Fraudulent misrepresentation, unauthorized transfers, manipulating investor data, misuse of corporate funds for personal expenses, including hotel stays." Graham froze. Lydia felt the air leave her lungs. They can't do this," Graham stammered. "This is my company. I built it. They can't push me out." "They already have," Alexandra replied, voice neutral. "Pending full investigation, your position as CEO is suspended, effective immediately." It was the first time Lydia had ever seen fear swallow Graham whole. It wasn't fear of losing her. It wasn't fear of losing Sienna. It was fear of losing power. "You think you can replace me?" he hissed. "With who?" Alexandra finally turned her gaze toward Lydia. "Mrs. Brooks," she said gently. "The board also received documentation concerning your original capital contributions, your design studio's valuation, and the prenuptial clause protecting your assets." Lydia's breath hitched. "In fact," Alexandra continued, "much of Whitford Investments' early development relied on your work, your funding, and your intellectual property. Something Mr. Whitford failed to disclose." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "That's why the board is here." Graham shook his head violently. No, this is a mistake. Lydia doesn't know anything about business. She's emotional. She's pregnant. She can't." Alexandra cut him off. "The board is offering Mrs. Brooks temporary oversight authority until a replacement CEO is appointed." The room went silent. Graham staggered back as if struck. Lydia stared at Alexandra. "Me? Run his company?" "You're not being asked to run it," Alexandra clarified. "Only to stabilize what he damaged. You have the legal right." Lydia didn't speak. Couldn't. Nathaniel stepped closer, voice soft. "You don't have to say yes, but you can." Graham looked at Lydia with desperation and rage tangled together. "You wouldn't dare." Lydia finally lifted her eyes. She didn't answer him. Instead, she whispered something that made Graham's entire world tilt. Because Lydia wasn't the only one the board planned to confront next. And the next name on their list was Sienna Vale. For a long moment, Graham looked at Lydia as if she were a stranger standing in his penthouse. A stranger who suddenly held every card he thought he owned. His mouth opened, closed, opened again like a man drowning in consequences he never imagined would reach him. "You're lying," he choked out. "The board wouldn't dare go after Sienna. She's done nothing wrong." Alexandra Pierce didn't flinch. "Mr. Whitford, Miss Vale has been connected to several irregular transactions funneled through accounts you authorized." Lydia felt a chill. Graham had used Sienna not just emotionally, but financially. He'd blended deceit with recklessness, and now they were both sinking. Graham's face contorted. "That's impossible. She doesn't even handle financials." Nathaniel interrupted. "But she advised you. Everyone knows she whispers in your ear at every event." Do you really think the board wouldn't notice your collaboration? Lydia saw it clearly now, Graham's carefully constructed world cracking, one betrayal at a time. She wasn't the only one he underestimated. He underestimated the board, the company, Sienna, himself, and most of all, he underestimated her. Alexandra continued, Miss Vale will be served shortly. The board is taking this very seriously. Graham swayed, gripping the countertop. This isn't happening? This can't be happening. Lydia watched him crumble. Not with satisfaction, not yet, but with a clarity she'd never felt before. This wasn't revenge emerging from spite. This was justice unfolding, painfully, precisely, inevitably. You did this to yourself, Lydia said softly. All of it. Graham snapped his gaze toward her. I did everything for us. You would have ruined the company with your emotional decisions. Your pregnancy, My pregnancy? Lydia repeated, voice dangerously calm. The child you planned to use as leverage in court? That shut him up. Nathaniel stepped forward. Enough. Lydia doesn't owe you an explanation. She doesn't owe you anything. Graham's breathing grew ragged. You can't take everything from me. Lydia held his gaze. I'm taking back what was mine. Silence stretched across the penthouse, heavy, electric. Graham wasn't fighting anymore. He was unraveling. Then Alexandra added, almost as an afterthought, one more thing. The board has requested your immediate appearance tomorrow morning for a formal removal hearing. Mrs. Brooks, she glanced at Lydia, you're invited to attend as a protected witness. A witness, not a victim, a force. Graham's knees nearly buckled. But before Lydia could respond, her phone vibrated again, this time with an incoming call. The name on the screen made her blood turn cold. Sienna Vale was calling, and she never called without a reason. Lydia hesitated only a moment before answering Sienna's call, not out of fear but clarity. Women learn, at some point, that silence is power. And Lydia was no longer the woman who rushed to defend or justify. She was the woman who watched the truth reveal itself. She put the phone on speaker. Sienna's voice burst through, high-pitched and shaking. Lydia, tell me you didn't send anyone after me. Nathaniel raised a brow. Graham froze. Lydia kept her tone calm. What are you talking about? My building security just came to my door with documents from the Whitford board. They're accusing me of fraud. Fraud. Do you hear me? Alexandra spoke evenly. Miss Vale has been linked to every unauthorized transaction. That's impossible, Sienna screeched. I didn't transfer anything, Graham said. It was handled. She stopped abruptly. Everyone heard it. Graham's shoulders slumped in dread. Nathaniel stepped forward, voice low. He said, what, Sienna? Sienna swallowed hard. He told me the accounts were untraceable, that everything would go under Lydia's name if anything happened. Every hair on Lydia's arms stood on end. Graham tried to speak. Sienna, don't. But she wasn't listening. Panic had taken over. He promised me we'd be together, she babbled. He said Lydia wouldn't fight. He said once the baby was born, she'd fall apart and he'd get custody anyway. Lydia inhaled sharply. Even when she knew it, hearing it aloud felt like someone had driven a blade into her spine. Sienna's voice broke. He told me he'd take care of me financially. He told me none of this could come back to me. Nathaniel shook his head. He lied to you the same way he lied to Lydia. Graham snapped. Sienna, shut up. Don't say another word. But Sienna was unraveling faster than he could stop her. You used me, she screamed. You told me Lydia was pathetic, that she was weak. You said I would be the new face of your company. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. His company? Not anymore. Sienna's breathing turned into chaotic sobs. Lydia, please, you have to tell them I didn't know. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought he loved me. Lydia's voice was quiet but razor sharp. He doesn't love anyone, Sienna. He uses people until there's nothing left. There was silence on the line, raw, humiliating, final. Then Sienna whispered something Lydia didn't expect. You should check the safe in the study. Graham's eyes widened in horror. Don't you dare, he shouted. But it was too late. Sienna had already revealed the one secret Graham feared more than anything else. Because whatever he hid in that safe was about to expose the darkest part of his deception. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Sienna's last words hung in the air like smoke. Check the safe in the study. Lydia watched Graham's face turn the color of ash. His reaction was instant, primal. He lunged toward the hallway. Nathaniel intercepted him. "You're not going anywhere," Nathaniel said, voice low but unshakably firm. Graham thrashed against him. "Get out of my way, you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Nathaniel replied. "Whatever is in that safe is something you never wanted Lydia to find." Alexandra gave a single nod toward Lydia. "You should look. If it concerns you, you have every right." Lydia hesitated, not out of fear, but out of a strange, quiet sorrow. How many secrets had this man built around her? How many times had she trusted him while he was counting on her not to see the truth? She straightened her shoulders and walked toward the study. The others followed, except Graham, who was pinned between Nathaniel and Alexandra's unwavering presence. He looked like a trapped animal, panicked and furious. "Lydia," he shouted after her, voice splitting, "don't do this. It's not what you think." But Lydia didn't look back. Inside the study, the safe sat tucked behind a framed abstract painting, one Lydia herself had hung 3 years earlier. She remembered Graham insisting the placement was perfect for the aesthetic. Now she understood why. The painting concealed more than art. Alexandra handed her the safe key, one she had taken discreetly from Graham's discarded jacket while he was spiraling. Lydia felt her pulse in her fingertips as she inserted the key. The lock clicked. The steel door swung open. At first, all she saw were neatly stacked folders. Then, something else. Passports. Multiple passports. Not all in Graham's name. Bank statements tied to offshore accounts Lydia never knew existed. A prenatal medical file, hers copied without her consent. Annotated with notes Graham had written about her emotional instability. Her breath caught, but there was one folder different from the rest. Thicker, sealed, marked with a single word: custody. Lydia opened it with trembling hands. Inside were drafted legal strategies outlining how Graham planned to portray her as unfit. Fabricated testimonies, manipulated financial history, mental health claims, arrangements for immediate removal of the baby after birth. Her vision blurred. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't exaggeration. He had planned everything. Nathaniel's voice broke through the silence. "Lydia, he was preparing to take your child." A sound escaped her, half gasp, half heartbreak. Behind them, Graham's voice cracked from the hallway, panicked and pleading. "Lydia, listen to me. Those documents weren't supposed to." She turned toward the door, tears shining, but not from weakness. "From awakening? You were never planning to leave me," she whispered. "You were planning to erase me." Graham's expression twisted, fear, guilt, desperation, colliding. But before he could speak, Alexandra's phone buzzed sharply. She glanced at the screen. Her eyes widened. "Lydia, there's something else, and it's about your baby." Alexandra's expression changed so abruptly that even Nathaniel straightened. Lydia felt her heart thud painfully against her ribs. "What about my baby?" she whispered. Alexandra hesitated, an unusual crack in her otherwise composed demeanor. "I just received an alert from the board's legal monitoring system. It concerns a medical authorization form." Lydia frowned. "What authorization?" Graham's voice erupted behind them. "Alexandra, stop talking. You don't understand what..." Nathaniel shoved him back with controlled strength. "Let her speak." Alexandra opened her tablet and turned the screen toward Lydia. There it was. Her name, her patient ID, her due date, and a digital signature, her signature. Except Lydia had never signed this form. "What is this?" she demanded, voice trembling. Alexandra answered quietly, "It's an authorization granting medical power of attorney to Mr. Whitford. Full rights to make decisions for your child immediately after birth." Lydia felt the room spin. "But why would he need that?" Graham snapped. "It's standard. Every couple does paperwork like that." "No," Alexandra interrupted sharply. "This specific form is used when one parent intends to remove the newborn from the mother's custody for medical or legal reasons." Lydia's breath iced over. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "You forged her signature." Graham's eyes darted wildly. "I didn't forge anything. She must have signed it without realizing." Lydia shook her head. "I never signed this." Her baby kicked a desperate flutter, as if sensing her distress. A tear escaped, not from weakness, but from rage deeper than anything she'd felt before. "You were going to take my child," she whispered. "The moment they were born." Graham's mask shattered. "Lydia, listen, this is all being blown out of proportion. I was just trying to protect our future." "Our future?" she repeated, disbelief shaking every word. "You were building a future without me." He tried to come closer, but Nathaniel blocked him again. Alexandra added, "There's more. The hospital flagged the form because someone, likely Sienna, submitted it incorrectly. Had it gone through cleanly, Lydia would have lost immediate rights after delivery." Lydia pressed a hand over her stomach, as if shielding her baby from the truth. How long have you planned this?" Graham didn't answer. He didn't have to. Nathaniel spoke for him. Long enough to think he'd get away with it. Silence fell cold, shaking, final. Then Alexandra's tablet beeped again. Her brows knitted as she read the new message. "Lydia," she said softly, "the board is requesting your presence at an emergency meeting tonight, not tomorrow." "Why?" Lydia asked. Alexandra looked up. "Because Graham's crimes go far beyond what we thought. And they believe you're the only one who can prove it." For the first time since the nightmare began, Lydia felt something stronger than fear, purpose. Her hands still trembled, yes, but not from weakness. The tremble came from adrenaline, from awakening, from finally stepping into a fight she hadn't chosen but would finish. Alexandra gathered the documents quickly. "The board meeting starts in 45 minutes. They want your testimony, your evidence, and..." She hesitated. "They want you to confirm whether you intend to file charges." Charges. The word echoed in Lydia's skull. Graham sputtered, "Charges? Alexandra, this is insane. She's my wife." Nathaniel answered sharply, "You stopped being her husband the moment you forged her medical documents." Graham turned on him. "You've been waiting for this, haven't you? You've always wanted her." "Don't think I didn't see the way you looked at." Lydia lifted her hand. For the first time, he obeyed. "This isn't about Nathaniel," she said softly. "This is about you, your choices, your lies." Nathaniel stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. "You don't have to go alone. I'll be by your side through the entire meeting." The offer steadied her more than she expected. "I'm going," Lydia replied, "and I'm telling them everything." Graham's composure finally snapped. "You ungrateful, after everything I built for you." "You built nothing for me," Lydia said. "You built a world that required me to disappear." Nathaniel guided her toward the elevator, one protective hand at her back. Graham lunged, but Alexandra blocked him with surprising force. "You take one more step toward her," Alexandra warned, "and I'll have building security escort you out." For once, Graham listened. As the elevator doors closed, Lydia exhaled shakily. Nathaniel watched her closely. "You're doing the right thing." She nodded, though her voice wavered. "I'm doing what I should have done a long time ago." The ride down felt surreal. Her reflection in the mirrored walls was no longer the fragile woman from the nursery. She looked like someone reclaiming her life piece by piece. At the lobby, a black car waited. Alexandra entered first, confirming details with the driver. Nathaniel helped Lydia into the seat beside him. His hand brushed hers, not romantic, but reassuring, grounding. "You're not alone tonight, Lydia," he murmured. Her throat tightened. But as the car pulled away from the building, Lydia's phone buzzed again. A notification. A new message. From an unknown number. She opened it, and her blood ran cold. It was a live video feed from inside her penthouse, pointed directly at the nursery. And in the corner of the frame, someone was standing there. For a split second, Lydia couldn't breathe. The live video showed the dim glow of the nursery nightlight and the silhouette of a man standing beside the crib. Nathaniel leaned forward. "Is that—" "No," Lydia whispered, pulse thundering. "Graham is still upstairs. Someone else is in my home." Alexandra immediately called building security. "We have a breach. Send a team now." The car swerved as the driver accelerated. Lydia felt the world closing in around her until the figure in the video finally turned. It wasn't a stranger. It was Sienna. Her mascara streaked, her face twisted with rage. She leaned into the camera. "You ruined my life," Sienna hissed. "So, I'm going to ruin yours." Nathaniel grabbed Lydia's hand. "She can't hurt you. Security is on the way." But Sienna wasn't done. She stepped closer to the crib. Closer. Too close. "Sienna!" Lydia shouted at the screen, voice breaking. Then, security stormed the nursery. The feed shook wildly before cutting out. Lydia collapsed back into her seat, shaking uncontrollably. She could have hurt. Nathaniel wrapped his arm around her shoulders, steady but gentle. She didn't. She won't ever get the chance. Within minutes, Alexandra's phone rang confirmation that Sienna had been detained and the baby's room was untouched. Only then did Lydia allow herself to cry, not from fear, but release. The true ending began at the board meeting. Rows of stern executives, advisors, and attorneys filled the long glass-walled conference room. Lydia entered with Nathaniel at her side, strength in every step. Documents from the safe were displayed, the video played, forged forms exposed, financial crimes outlined. Graham was escorted in last. His arrogance was gone, his power gone, his future crumbling. The board chair faced Lydia. "Mrs. Brooks, do you wish to press charges?" Lydia met Graham's eyes. For years, she had seen the man she hoped he could be. Now she saw the man he truly was. "Yes," she said, "for everything." The decision was unanimous. Graham was removed permanently, his accounts frozen, his assets seized pending investigation, his access to Lydia and the baby legally revoked. Nathaniel stepped closer, voice low. "It's over, Lydia. You won." But she shook her head softly. "No, I didn't win. I survived." He smiled. "Surviving is the first step. Now you get to live." Months later, Lydia stood in her fully restored design studio, her name on the door, her baby asleep in a carrier beside her desk. Nathaniel walked in with coffee, warmth, and quiet admiration. Life wasn't perfect, but it was hers again. She had a future, a family, a man who respected her, a world she rebuilt with her own hands. And Graham? He faced trial. He lost everything he tried to steal. He lived the consequences he once thought only others deserved. Because life had taught Lydia one final truth. When a woman rises after being broken, she rises stronger than the man who broke her ever imagined. And just like that, our story comes to an end. But you're still here, aren't you? If you're listening to me right now, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a way words alone cannot describe. So let's pause together, you and I, and look at this story from a different angle, your angle. Life will always test us, sometimes through betrayal, sometimes through disappointment, and sometimes through the heartbreaking realization that the people we trusted were never who we believed. But as the Stoics often reminded us, what stands in the way becomes the way. Pain isn't the end, it's the beginning of clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Lydia found that power the moment she chose herself, and so can you. If this story stirred something in you, a memory, a lesson, a spark of strength, don't keep it to yourself. Like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel so more hearts can heal, breathe, and rise again with us. You're not alone, and maybe tonight you needed this reminder more than anything else.